Hi guys, welcome to Matcha with Murad. I am Murad, of course, and this is one of my solo episodes. So I am starting today with my matcha. Of course, we have to start with the matcha every week. And this is this is called the Jade Leaf Sticks. So it's really nice because you have all these little, they're like made out of paper, I think. And they're little sticks that you can just throw into your matcha, blend up just the way you do normal matcha. So you can kind of take them on the go. They're already measured out to exactly how much you need. And today I decided to do oat milk, of course, and I made it nice and foamy today. If you're watching the video version of this, you will see this now. But I also added some cardamom on top. If you ever put cardamom in your matcha or coffee, you know it's just like this little kick. And since we're going into September and fall, I thought, why not add a little bit of kick to my matcha today? So I wanted to start today with a new segment that I want to do every week. Just because I am so passionate about matcha, I want to add a matcha fact every week. So this one comes from the Spoon University, and it is titled 137 times more powerful. So because matcha is made from 100% whole ground green tea leaves, when you drink matcha, you're actually receiving 100% of the nutrients, vitamins, and fiber, and you're also getting 137 times the antioxidants that you'd get from a standard cup. So today I have my oat milk and my matcha, and I'm getting all that health benefits. So if you didn't know that about matcha, there you go. It is 137 times more powerful than a normal cup of green tea. Oh, I hope you can hear like the foam. It's like an ASMR. All right, so back to the episode. Today, I want to talk about flow state. And this is something I think I've mentioned in a couple of my episodes, but I don't get deeply into. And I really want to start adding more actual research and information into these podcasts. So I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into flow state and what that really means. And everyone knows that feeling you get when you completely stop thinking and it's like magic and you're just fully immersed in whatever it is that you're doing. So let's talk about that for a second, because I know a lot of people are into it, and I think of it kind of the same way I think about meditation. And I know a lot of people are actually afraid to meditate. I had two roommates who were terrified of it. So every time we would do yoga, I would go to do meditation, and they were like, "Nope, I don't want to do it." And a lot of people I think feel that way, and it's just that fear of going into your head and not thinking. And it's funny because your mind actually doesn't want you to do that. Your mind doesn't want you to have control over it. And meditation is something that we do to gain control over our mind and how chaotic our minds can be. So of course, your mind's going to try to get you to not meditate. And I think that is the trickiest part of finding like a meditation practice is kind of, it's like the same thing as going to the gym, where your brain's just like, you don't want to do that. You want to stay in bed. You don't want to get up and meditate. So I think that is a big reason why people are scared of meditation, and I think that also goes into flow state, which I'll get into. But just that idea that meditation is something that quiets our mind and teaches us how to have the control versus our mind having the control, I think is a big deal. And of course, it's easier not to meditate and keep living with anxiety and depression or however else that comes, like that chaotic energy actually goes into our lives from us not learning how to handle it. And I think it's all just kind of a lack of discipline. And the reason why we don't meditate is a lack of discipline. The reason why we don't go to the gym is a lack of discipline. And it's not something we're doing on purpose, right? Like it's not like we know that we're basically self-sabotaging ourselves. It's just, it's natural for us to avoid it. So this is the same thing as the flow state. I believe the flow state is actually a creative form of meditation. And this is why we get into a meditative flow when we're in flow state. It's that same thing of not thinking, right? And that's what meditation is to me, is a flow state with your eyes closed. But you're just thinking about your third eye and you're actually not thinking about anything. So the only part you have to do is the most important part of meditation to get into your flow state, and that is to just stop thinking. So if you can stop thinking, then that's when you reach the really good part. That's when you can actually let go of some of those things that you might think about that keeps you from getting to that flow state. So I actually did some research on this, and I found most of my information from positivepsychology.com because I thought the article was so good, like everything that it talked about. And so I wanted to start, they listed the optimal conditions that you need to have in order to reach flow state, which is something I didn't even really consider until I saw this article. And I was like, of course, you need certain conditions to even get there in the first place. So the first one is a challenge/skills balance. So you have to have a balance between your skills and the challenge that you're facing. Because if the challenge is too high, then you may become discouraged, and this will create those negative emotions that create anxiety and doubt and all of those things that you can't get into flow state when you're thinking about what you're doing. When you're thinking about the fact that you can't do something, all that is doing is bringing anxiety in. It's defeating the purpose. So that's the first one, and I think it makes total sense. The second condition you need is clear goals and an unambiguous feedback. So this means that we create clear goals for ourselves, and we will have positive feedback when we achieve them. That's just psychology. When you set a clear goal and you achieve it, there's a positive feedback in your brain from that. You give yourself positive feedback. You say, good job, like you actually did something that you wanted to. And this helps you get in the flow state because you're not thinking about what you didn't do or that you didn't achieve it. And that creates negative feelings. So you'll see a trend in flow state of avoiding negative feelings. Like if you can keep the negative feelings away, then you don't think as much, right? So the next one is concentration of the task at hand. I think this is probably the most obvious condition that you need for flow state, is that you have to actually be in the present moment and be concentrating on what you're doing to reach your flow state. So you have to truly experience whatever it is you're focusing on if you want to reach your flow state. Perfect sense to me. The fourth one is a sense of control. So I love this one because I'm a control freak, and I think this one's really interesting because when you're in your flow state, you still have to have a sense of control, right? That's a part of it. If you don't, you start kind of worrying and thinking again. But this sense of control is it's something that you have without having to exert that energy. So you're not actually controlling anything. You just know that you have control. And it's that same feeling you get when you just feel like you can do anything, right? It's like, I can do anything right now, is the same feeling. And the more you can develop this, so the more you can feel in control in stressful situations, the more you can actually develop that and use it in real life. So when you have these stressful situations, if you can still feel in control internally, then that's going to help you a lot when you're just, you miss the train or you're running late for work, that feeling. And then if you get that feeling, then you can also reach your flow state easier too, because it's just, it's kind of like meditation where it's controlling your mind. This is like having control of yourself, basically, in your mental. So yes, sense of control is very important. And number 5, loss of self-consciousness. So this is huge, right? Because we all have our times when we feel self-conscious when we're doing something creative or doing something that involves a skill or a challenge. Of course, there's times when we think we're not good enough or we can't do it. And when you're in your flow state, you're not thinking that at all, right? Like when you're like in that moment, you have no doubts in yourself at all. And I think this is why flow state feels so addicting for so many people and why it's just this release. And it's pretty much why we do whatever art we do, is so we can get to this state of just freedom from our own like cages that we put ourselves in. So loss of self-consciousness is a big one. 6 is transformation of time. So, when you completely lose your sense of time, that is definitely a flow state trait. When you're into whatever you're doing so much that time feels kind of distorted because you're so deeply involved in that moment that you're in. So this happens to me all the time. I could be in studio for 14 hours and it feels like 1 hour. It's just, time doesn't even exist when you're in that state. And then autotellic experience, I didn't know what this one was. And so this was really interesting to me. But this is when you do something just because of the fact that you enjoy it. You don't have any future benefit, or at least there's no expectation that you're going to have a future benefit from it. So this just basically means you genuinely love it and you're not doing it to put yourself ahead or to get any kind of benefit from it except for the fact that you love it and you're happy doing it. So I loved all of these, and it just feels really good to research flow state and know that everyone else feels this too, and it's something that you can develop, because I think it's really cool that you can actually develop this skill and see it more and more in your everyday life. I think that's amazing because we all strive for this, and you can't always predict when it's going to happen. But the more you put yourself into these conditions and the more you try on a daily basis to turn all distractions off, I think that is a huge, I'm going to mention that next, but if you can turn all the distractions off and focus on this every day, then you can really develop this skill. Okay, so the next 7 things I learned on this article I think are really big too, and that's the 7 activities that you have that help you reach your flow state. So the first one is to focus on your body. So take control of your physical abilities and skills. Like a huge example, obviously, with me is yoga. So when I take control of my physical in yoga, then I reach that flow state where every movement has a breath. So it's this physical flow for me, and then I stop thinking because I'm focusing so much on my body. And this even happens with singing, because even singing is so much more physical than people think it is. So when you're singing, you have to focus on your body, or you're not going to be singing correctly. So if you can actually just focus on the feeling of singing rather than the words you're singing or how well you're singing them, then that's when you, I think, reach your flow state as an artist. Or as a performer, I guess. And then the second one is focusing on your mind. So obviously, you cannot reach a flow state when your mind is in chaos. That's just, a fact. We can't do that. You're not going to reach your flow state when your brain's going in 20 different directions of like, what should I eat for lunch? Why didn't I do this yet? Blah, 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 blah. We all know that feeling. It's not always great. So yes, make sure that your brain, your mind, is in a calm state before you start doing something that you want to do. And then 3, leverage memory. So use your memory to your advantage and recall how fulfilling that goal will feel, or how fulfilling a goal similar to that in the past has felt. And then feel that positive emotion. And that will drive you to actually get into that flow state and really lose yourself so you can do that same thing again. Number 4 is focusing on your thoughts. So this is kind of like the mind one, right? If you consciously focus on your thoughts, you can avoid more distractions. So distractions, I think, are the number one way, besides doubt and like anxiety and self-consciousness, I think distractions are another huge way we don't reach our flow state. And I was just talking to my boyfriend this morning, and he was like, I finally finished this draft I was doing for my internship, and it was hard until I turned off all the videos and I just put on some like lo-fi music in the background and did it. And then it actually was so much fun and I enjoyed it. And I was like, I'm so proud of you. I'm doing a podcast today about flow state, and sir, you just reached your flow state. So I was really proud of him, and that's a huge example. You just have to turn off distractions and you'll be surprised at how much you enjoy doing something. Even you can reach your flow state with your job, with your learning, like if you're taking classes, you can reach your flow state with things that aren't just creative, right? Like, or that aren't your craft, I should say. And then the 5th one is communicate. Communicate to yourself though, which is interesting. So write down your experiences actually helps you foster an understanding of your own capabilities and goals. So the more you write down what you've experienced and what you've gone through, the more you realize what you're capable of and what your goals really are. So for me, like, I have to write down my goals or I feel kind of jumbled if I'm just trying to keep them all in my brain. So I always write down my goals, and then it's cool to write down what I did that day, because then I see what I was capable of. So I love that one. Number 6 is lifelong learning. The key to understanding what is happening in this world around us is to figure out what our own personal message is in that. So lifelong learning is just always being curious, always trying to learn more, and then realizing what your purpose really is. And sometimes, all the time actually, learning can help you find that purpose. I don't think if you do the same exact thing every single day and you don't grow, I don't think you will find your purpose as easily, right? Because you're not figuring out what you're passionate about. You're not diving deeper into issues that you care about. So definitely lifelong learning is huge. And then number 7, the last one, is focusing on the job at hand. And this one is really personal to me because I work a serving job right now while I'm doing all of the other things that I do. And a lot of the times I think negatively about this. And I'm kind of like, why do I have to have this job? I could get so much more done if I was doing my music all the time or my podcast. And the truth is, there's always something to learn in whatever job you're doing. So whether it's your dream job or something you have to do to pay the bills, keeping a positive mindset is the most important thing you can do because you don't have a choice either. Like, you have to do something to pay your bills, right? So whether it is your dream job or not, having a positive mindset and focusing on what you can actually learn and keep developing in yourself is the most important thing you can do. So for me, serving, it is so good for my development skills and people in communicating. It's so important for your confidence because you have to, if you don't have high confidence, you're not going to be a great server because you have to come up to people you don't know and you have to kind of present yourself and you have to know what you're talking about and you have to give them really good service. You're almost like a performer in a way if you want a good tip, right? So there's so many things you can learn, and I won't even get into prioritizing. Prioritizing is huge in the service industry, and a lot of surgeons and people in the medical field actually look for servers to hire, people who have serving experience to hire because they know that that is the only other job that prioritizes at such a fast pace, right then and there. So focus on the job, no matter what your job is right now, and use that job to actually develop your flow state skills. Learn how to get in a flow state at work. And that happens to me all the time serving, so I know what happens to everybody else and whatever else they're doing. When you can actually focus on your job and really be in it, the day goes by faster, but you get more out of it. You actually feel like you really did something and that you enjoyed it, which is the most important part. So those are not mine, actually. Those are 7 tips that I got from this website that I thought were amazing and actually, activities to help you reach your flow state. So I hope you find this interesting. I think flow state is so important in everything you do in life. If you think about it, it basically means being mindful with whatever task you're doing. And I think of this about my making music, but I also think of it when I'm researching. When I researched for this podcast, I was so interested in it that I reached a really nice flow state. So you can do this when you're journaling, reading, creating content. And if you can think of at least 3 things that you could do on a daily basis or that you do that you could challenge yourself to try to reach a flow state in, I'd love to hear what those are. And I had a lot of fun making this episode. So let me know if you enjoyed this episode and just me bringing a few more facts to the table when I do podcast. I think it's really helpful personally, and I hope it's something you enjoy. And of course, remember to drink your matcha this week and be your own best friend. All right, guys, I'll see you next week.